Be-do-be-be-do-dee-dee. Greetings, everyone. I'm here still. Maybe 8% of my voice is back. 90? I want to be generous. But hello, everyone. This is your friend Carlz with another weekly comic book chit chat. As always, there's some news prowling around. News that are kind of like arguably interesting. This is not something that I consider necessarily newsworthy, but I consider it mention worthy. So apparently, they are subcontracting, renting, how would you call it? But this company is taking Stan Lee's AI likeness and voice. Is it the voice likeness? If you're doing the voice, is it voice likeness as well? Well, whatever. Like basically AI Stan Lee, which I found it to be so funny. There's this one thing about AI. I do think it's useful, but I do think it sucks a lot because, like, if you go into the big spectrum of things, everything that's been done with AI, most of it's just so bad for everyone, for jobs, for the environment, for our minds, but it's so fucking useful. Like, if I don't have to do like an Excel spreadsheet ever again, I'll be so fucking happy, you know. But the thing with AI, the big thing with AI to me, is that we don't know what the fuck to do with it in an ethical, kind of like human way, you know. As a philosopher, people always ask. I mean, we philosophers have been asking since modern times, like, why do people don't give a shit about us? And it's because we ain't practical. It seems like everything we did was just, as they used to say in old times, like, you guys live on the clouds thinking about the big ideas. But lo and behold, now we're faced against the big ideas. And it's the lack of, let's say, attention to it that has brought us to this point. You know, I'm not saying that everybody should. Personally, I think everybody is a philosopher deep down. I'm not saying it would save us the troubles of modern day AI or whatever, but it would definitely would have put in the mind of legislators and creators this sense of can you say, this metaphysical sense of ontology, you know, because you do shit. You remember that classic line from Jurassic Park, the one for Ian Malcolm when he's like showing his nipples and shit, and he goes like, "Oh yeah, like you never wonder if you should." That question, that meme question, is a question that should be ingrained in every inventor's throughout history. And now we have virtual, like digital inventors who are completely, fully unhinged, batshit crazy. And I'm not only talking about AI, I'm also talking about technology moguls. You know, you get this Chinese Nvidia guy, you know, like we're gonna create the biggest chip creator. Like everybody wants to do the most. I want this chip to have infinite whatever processing power, and now you can basically tell it to create a whole movie in 10 seconds. And look, that obsession with ever-growing technology, which is completely attached to that, one of the big lies of capitalism, which is that we can grow exponentially infinitely in a planet with limited resources, you know. So you have these people thinking about forever, thinking about the infinite, thinking, and they love to say, like, if it's a good thing, like our resources have no limits. Dude, everything has limits. Only the universe is infinite, and even the universe is growing. You know, the universe is not infinite because it is infinite, it's because it's growing. You can't outgrow the infinite. And these people have no consideration for anything. And that is the problem with AI. So, if we go back to fucking Stan Lee, dude, who the fuck cares? Like, they did it legally, you know? The least of our problems, I don't want to be mean, like, of course it sucks. But the real thing that should bother you is the existence of the whole thing in on itself, you know? But at the end of the day, even if you can do mind exercises and question the ethics and the morality of it, if you want to say it like that, at the end of the day, what can you really do? You know? What can you really do? So I don't give a shit if fucking Stan Lee is gonna appear in the next fucking Marvel movie, you know? That's a reality that is way beyond our control. So I don't give a shit. Because I'm a philosopher, but I'm also an existentialism depressed emo whatever individual, man. I don't give a shit. Would love that people in power would give a shit, but since they don't give a shit, why should I give a shit? You know, what I do give a shit is the world of imagination, especially seen through the creative minds of writers, artists, letterers, even a little bit of editorials in the world of comics. So which comics am I excited this week for? Let's giddy up into them. So, Kelly Sue the Conic is back with more FML. Her, to this day, I believe, autobiographical old lady. I don't want to be disrespectful, but this book is not nominated, by the way. Is so funny because it basically is this portrait of like writers, comic book writers, women, Portland, family. And you know, one of the things I like in comic creation is when they take like the minimal step into fantasy. What do I mean by this? You keep it so relatable. I mean, it's not relatable because I'm not a comic book writer woman from Portland, but it's relatable in the human sense. And you take like the smallest step into some fantasy and you add like a pinch of craziness, like a pinch of comic book magic. And that's all it takes, man. That's why this medium is so great. That's why this medium is so awesome. It's like pushing it just a little bit beyond like a realistic narrative, or like, you know, push it just a little bit. And now you see this, and this is like all of her experiences with motherhood, dealing with her peers, you know, with her world. And now it's just a magic thing, and I love that it's really hard to define. I love that FML is like, is it her biography? Is it like action? Is it comedy? Because it's all of those things. This book is magic, and I love that it's hard to define. Like the best thing you can do is like tell someone, go read it, and you know, even read the back matter. You know, whatever opinion she has after the issues, and her thoughts about music, and you know, different scenes she lived through. Man, this is like kind of like tip top best OP autobiography, if it indeed is one, which I think it is. FML, Dark Horse Comics, Kelly Sue, next. So this is the end of Harley and Ivy life. I was gonna say life in chicken. So Erika Henderson, whom I love from Squirrel Girl, of course, Uh, this is my way of sort of doing a little review of this miniseries. It was good, but it was insufficient. I This is supposed to be kind of like the seeds of Harley and Ivy's romance, which has basically defined couples in DC for a long time. I said before, and I saw the backlash from the Poison Ivy book, right, about them breaking up, everything. Like, where was the genesis of it? The premise of the book was that it was the genesis of the love between them, but it felt too high schoolish, too kind of like innocent, which of course you can find it fine, but it was too innocent, too kind of like, I don't know. It might be a little bit unfair for me to be asking for like a big romance payout or like something 100% surprisingly creative, since that I'm not that much of a creative person myself. But I don't know, I expected to be moved by to say like, man, these two deserve each other and their love is like the best shit that has happened romantically in DC forever. Like, yeah. But that's like kind of like the classic conundrum of consumers. You always have expectations, and it happens everywhere: comics, movies, albums, everything you expect from art. uh, you gotta measure it up, you gotta balance what you expect with what you get and everything, being a little bit empathic or empathetic, and understanding with the creators, find the middle ground. But even if you take all of those steps, sometimes you can't lie to yourself, and like if you feel unsatisfied, you know you just gotta go with it and be honest. So so this is the final issue of the miniseries. Will it change my opinion? I really doubt it, but anyways, just support Erica Henderson. She cool. Next. So in this, only the savage are left. You know why I'm recommending this book? Because only what, maybe a couple of weeks ago, I was actually talking about another of new post-apocalyptic, the one with ghosts in it, and I'm not particularly, what can you say, like keen or interested in anything about this. I just wanted to mention how curious it is that um this narrative kind of like a tool, how it just keeps being there forever. Why is this shit so damn interesting? Why is the post-apocalyptic world so damn interesting? I think that is the big question. And you end up, at least I myself, I just take a peek always to these kind of stories, and I don't know why. Because they have they are always really trope heavy, you know like there's like a brave survivor. There are like renegade groups of humans who always break like common sense or common morality. They always go over, these are like really trope heavy genres, but I don't know why I keep coming back to them. I really don't. And I guess, um, I don't know. I guess you don't have to think that much about it, right? It's not like you want to experience the end of the world as much as you can, right? It can be that reason. Well, if it's that your reason, that's your reason. But anyways, uh, it's a post-apocalyptic world. Monsters. A survivor is having his own adventure. We're probably gonna support him and hate all the baddies. So this mini series is just gonna be that. And as I'm trying to show many times in this little corner space of my world, that is sometimes I pick books only because of that. You know, no writers, no uh, like nothing. Like, oh, it's another comic about the end of the world. I'm gonna check it out. You know, like those like the moments of honesty. So only the savage are left. Dark Horse Comics. Well, another one. Next. So we're back to Poison Ivy, one of the most controversial ongoing books for DC. I, I, I I'm really baffled to how much criticism this book has had. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, it's not it's not my favorite, but one thing that I've noticed, um, with the ongoing saga of Poison Ivy as a major, is that she's walking that line that I wanted her to walk by the end of the last story arc, and that she's really tapping in to the villain side of Poison Ivy. You know, it's easy to get angry at the whole she broke up with Harley and everything, but they are really doing this thing that I've mentioned almost every week now, especially in the Gotham side of DC. They are creating an overarching or like an overreaching story arc. They do. Now, they even have the logo here for the next Batman event, the Bat Seeds. So everything is coming together in this. You know, Poison Ivy, Vandal Savage, Barbara Gordon, Batman, you know, everything is coming in, and I love the ambiguity in the current Poison Ivy's sort of return to villainy story arc. It's not really that much of a criticism over modern day politics. It's not absolute Batman annual, but it's there. There is some commentary there on modern day politics, you know, and that is something that DC has done way better than Marvel these past years. So there are some really interesting elements in the current Poison Ivy as major story arc. I just want to rescue, or like not rescue, but like highlight the good elements it has. Commentary on politics, the overarching, like she's one of the main elements, not only of the next event, but that everything is happening with Gotham and all of the associated characters. You know, they keep bringing back her relationship with Harley, so we know there's gonna be a payout after that. You know, they keep bringing back her role in the what is the Council of the Green, but this like the fundamental powers of on the DC universe, like the green, the blue, right? Like they keep bringing her side on it, of it, and the writing is really good because she's in that line. You know, she's walking that edge between sanity, insanity, good and evil. She's there every time, and I really like that. I really like that. Like she can fall off at any point. I really enjoy it. So overall, I think it's been a good story arc. Not as good as the previous one, but it's been a good story arc. You know. So I mean, it's not a jumping point, but it's good time as any to try to read it up. You know. Poison Ivy, DC. Next. This is without a doubt the book of the week. Marguerite Bennett back into the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers saddle. I knew that this book was coming out, but I haven't seen the new suits. And I gotta say, they look stupid as fuck. Yeah, I'm no artist or anything, but it's just the same as the old ones with like some extra squares. I don't know, man. They look they look stupid. But anyways, I talked about this when they gave this one, like the preview of this one for the free comic book day, which actually I didn't think I got. I didn't got to read that story. But here's the thing: this current story is gonna bring back the original Power Rangers, but they are older, so they come back and they face like a new challenge. This shit is extremely trope heavy. Extremely trope heavy. If you've been into comic books or like in this side of the fantasy world, you've seen this a million times. This guy was a hero when he was a teen, now he's old, he has, I don't know, son, daughters, responsibilities. Probably one of them has been in like dealing with drugs or whatever. Like, I don't know. Tommy's not in the picture, so either in this timeline he was never there, maybe he died, which they actually did in like the biggest Power Ranger storyline of this era of comic books. One of the versions of Kimberly had her Tommy died, and now she was like bad or something, whatever. The thing I want to mention about this book is that despite the good things that had happened with the current kind of like Power Rangers world, they have done a lot of interesting things. It always comes back to this, you know, and that is no small matter, because if people they're always gonna go like, this is a Japanese, like, whatever, fuck you. But this is a franchise that has been running for decades, but it's always gonna come back to this. It's always gonna come back to this, you know. And of course the explanation is fairly obvious in my opinion. It's because when they were great, when they were like the next Ninja Turtles, like they left an impression that went beyond the creative side of it, because the Power Rangers, the series, was whack. It was really like, it had its moments, but it was mostly shit. But you were a kid, impressionable, and like these were the next Ninja Turtles, and that feeling can only be brought back by these five guys with the dinosaurs, with the colors, like with the song. Why do you think the song keeps coming back, you know? But as many of these things go, you can't kind of like bring that back fully. You just can't. It's not something that you can do. The only thing that you can hope for is to get either new vibes, either updated vibes, you know, either new audience, find a middle ground. You know, you can hope for all of that, but it's always gonna come back to this. Am I saying this as a criticism or something bad? No, not really. Not really at all. But it's just fair to mention that no matter how big the morphing grid and how many versions of Power Rangers there are, these are the ones that capture the magic. So of course they do a new number one and they're gonna bring back Jason, Trini, Kimberly, Zach, Billy. Damn, are those generic names. What would those names be in like Latino? It would be like Jose, Pedro, Jesus. For women, I don't wanna. Maria. And I know I'm thinking about the name Bianca, but I don't know how common that is. Camila maybe. But whatever. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers are back. I'm pretty sure they're not gonna be that connected to the whole world of Power Rangers. In the time span of like what 5 years, 4 years, they have done so much Power Ranger comic book stuff, so much that I don't know. Sometimes you like yearn for that simplicity of the old series. These are the five guys. These are their animals. This is this is the robot. They fight against this guy. They explode. Next, you have a different set of 6 5 guys. These are their animals. These are the robots. They fight this guy. They explode. Sometimes you yearn for that simplicity, you know, but that is not comic book simplicity, and I hope it never is. Next. This was so close to be my book of the week, because there's a bunch of things that really come together for Spawn. I've been talking about Spawn maybe since the first episode, since the first I decided to talk about comic books, because as I mentioned before, Spawn was probably the most influential comic book in my teenage years. Being able to pick up that number one and be a fan since the beginning. So 375 issues later, like 20 fucking years or whatever. And I've said a lot about Spawn, and one of the things we kind of like deal as Spawn's followers or fans is the ever-present of Todd fucking McFarlane, right? It seems like, well, he's always gonna be there until he die, I guess. And it seems like in every story arc, it starts developing, and then Todd McFarlane comes in and it becomes the same shit, and and that's it. The previous storyline for Spawn had Malebolgia, the big baddie from the beginning of Spawn, coming back. He fought Cogliostro, aka Sin. They were aiming to gain control over Hell so they could conquer the Earth again. It was the same shit. And a little bit of spoiler of Spawn 375. In the end, they sort of Malebolgia kind of like comes together with Spawn, and they beat Sin in a way, and they sort of reset the whole thing again in a strange way, which basically means that Spawn 376 is the start of a new story arc led by Matthew Rosenberg, who has been quite awarded for the What's the Furthest Place from Here comic book, which I think I like it, but like I'm not that crazy for it, but he has done a lot. So this is a new story arc. And you know, for a book like this, jumping points become even more important, because editorial wise, they're never gonna let Spawn get like a really not even a hard reset, but a soft reset. There's never gonna be like because they have turned the longevity of this book into a selling point. The longest running American comic book warrior, they have turned this into a selling point. So jumping points for Spawn are subtle, but they are there. They are explicit. A change in storyline, a change in creative team. So this is a new Spawn, basically. It was funny because even in the last story arc, they make a really big deal about the vampires, which they kind of like forgot about it. The fight between vampires, Spawn getting like his grafted wings. It was so funny because they made such a big deal about that. And in 375 or the issue before, Malebolgia goes like, "Oh, Spawn, you're wearing those wings. They're so ugly." Poof. Like, come as the true form that I intended for you. Whatever, man. They're heavily implied that they are doing more strongly the Chosen One storyline, or the Chosen One tropes with Al Simmons in this new story arc. But the one thing that I want to mention though is that Matthew Rosenberg, I talked about it last week, I think it was last week, right? About this new book, If Destruction Be Our Lot. I read number one, and it's so fucking good, man. I'm a sucker for also sci-fi and robot things. So in if destruction be a lot, the story was this world where humans don't exist anymore, and you have this AI robot society. And I thought, yeah, that sounds pretty generic and everything. And I remember talking about the book and like going like, yeah, I'm keen on it. Like I'm gonna check it out. And I had so much fun with issue number one because I didn't had the context that if destruction be or lot and all of these kind of like phrases, they come from Abraham Lincoln. And the protagonist of the book is a robot AI Abraham Lincoln having some sort of existential crisis. And that is so creative. Now you always have this fringe, this outlier in robot stories, right? Like this is a robot society. It's kind of like a common trope. You have this one robot, this one AI who either gets self-conscious or they either get, a spark of individuality, and then you got the beginning of the story. I didn't expect that to be Abraham Lincoln. It's so funny. I'm not gonna spoil it, but like it's so funny. It has comedy in it. The way the robots behave, the way the robots are written, and the base of the story is so interesting. I never expected to take that comedic vibe. I didn't expect it to be so creative. So I love that book, and he is doing Spawn now. There you go. You have a connection. Next. So DC is bringing the same team from the Ice Cream Man who did the Superman Kryptonite Spectrum, and they're doing a Deadman book. I don't have that much to say about Deadman. The thing I like the most about Deadman is when they use him as like a comedic element. You know, it's something really common with the character, but he's always kind of like an outlier character. It's not really that much of that much importance, But this creative team, I should have taken note of the one of the last Ice Cream Man titles. Like that book just keeps getting better and better. Since it's episodic, one of the stories could be good and the next could be bad. Like it's come and go, but they're mostly good. But the Superman book, the Kryptonite Spectrum or whatever, as I mentioned before, it wasn't that much of my liking. I didn't thought it was boundary pushing enough, which I thought was gonna be the point of it. What was the point of bringing this creative team if you weren't going to be that pushy enough? There are some conceptual ideas in that Superman book regarding how Superman's emotions can be heightened by different kryptonite colors and what it really means for the most powerful individual or being on Earth to be kind of like a victim of their own emotions, as we all are, like many times during our lives. So I'm thinking that for Deadman, they might be allowed to push that boundary, the one that they didn't or they couldn't do in the Superman book, because after all, it's Superman. He's a poster boy for DC. You can't really take him that many places. That's kind of like implied. So I hope they do that with Deadman. After all, the Superman book wasn't bad. It just wasn't as edgy as I wanted it to be. But Deadman is not that important, So I wonder what they're gonna do with him. But because we have seen many times in Ice Cream Man the balance between comedy, horror, and overall batshit craziness, we've seen that balance in many of those stories. But let's see what happens with the Deadman. You know, let's hope they can give them like a more open playground to play in than what they had with Superman. Next. Next and last, this is no new stuff. This is no like Image is releasing the comic book adaptation of the Transformers movie. Like if you've been anywhere near to the Transformers universe, like this year is a 40th anniversary. I think they've been doing a lot of shit with the Transformers movie. So it's re-releasing the comic book version. I'm just taking this time to say about the Transformers movie. Like, not only Transformers Generation 1, but the Transformers movie is the Transformers. It's so funny. Like, I've been praising almost weekly or like bi-weekly the current Energon universe, and of course it's great. It's great storytelling, and the characters are there. The art is amazing. Jorge Corona is amazing in it. Daniel Warren Johnson's beginning of the story was great. Everything, but like Transformers, everything comes back to this. And I was talking about with Power Rangers, like how basically whenever you think about that franchise, you think about those five guys. Whenever you think about Transformers, you think about this. That's it. I don't even think that there are such kind of like passionate fans of Transformers who grew up with the Michael Bay movies. I'm not a hater of the Bayformer era at all. I think the Bayformers era was the necessary refresh that the Transformers needed to get back into the mainstream, and it did. It was the renaissance for the Transformers. You know, uh, you had like a bunch of the animes and shit, like Transformers Armada. The toys never went away, but it wasn't until the Transformers Michael Bay era came about that Transformers came back to the mainstream in the way that they are today. In a way, if it wasn't for the Michael Bay era, we probably wouldn't have the current marvelous comics for the Transformers. The great storylines we're seeing today. We sure as hell wouldn't have all the toys that they have nowadays. I mean, I'm off material stuff. I'm this emo-centric, Zen, non-Buddhist kind of like guy. I don't give a shit about material stuff anymore, but I can appreciate the effort made into creating the world of toys. Like this morbidly absurd $2,000, $3,000 self-transforming robots. But anyways, I'm not gonna like rant about Transformers as a franchise. Just gonna be grateful that they are releasing this story as well. It's only fair. If you are celebrating the movie, it's only fair to show this. And that cover, man, that cover is so fucking awesome. That is Transformers there. Space, robots, you can see Unicron in the back, and like Optimus being badass. Like some kind of like sexy fembot work there. I've never been a fembot kind of guy though. That's one thing to say. I mean, I love RC and Elita as characters and their robot designs, but I've never been a fembot guy. I think, I don't know, man. No king shaming, but like fembot stuff is kind of weird. Because even if you wanna like, you can't cuddle with a fembot. That shit is cold. And I don't know. Don't want to go that deep into it, but like the warmth of cuddling and that she's cold. Whatever. Transformers the movie, the comic book version, and that's it for my week. Man, Like I was so close to add a couple of other books, but like I'm just gonna leave them into like the ether in a sense. Like I'm gonna wait how they develop. There's like some interesting things going on in Absolute Green Lantern. The new Spider-Man villain is kind of weird. I could have talked also about how Batgirl seems to be connected or and at the same time disconnected from, as I've been calling it, the Gotham, the overarching Gotham story arc. You know, there's always stuff going on in comics, but you can talk about all of them. I mean, I would if I get like fucking paid or something. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, that's another good thing, good week on comics, in comics. Um, Go read your favorites, have a blast, read out, dream on, like fuck AI, like But give it a think, give it a thought, give it a thought. Believe me, I think just thinking about it and having your own opinion is more than enough because you can't stop it. Leave that to. What would it take to stop that shit, man? Just think about it. Like, really think about it. What would it take to dismantle this overwhelming, like, destructive wave of AI? I assure you that in, like, what? Not even 10, maybe 5 years, we're gonna get a documentary, like that documentary they did about the Sacklers and about the creation of fentanyl in the US and how basically lobbyists, the Pfizer guys, I think the Pfizer company, through lobbyists, made it possible for the current fentanyl epidemic in the US to happen by hiding facts of the real dangers and the real impact of fentanyl in the law. In that's a fact. They did so. So I bet in like 5 years from now, or maybe less, we're gonna get something similar about these great tech moguls and how they probably bought some lobbyists in Congress. So they made it that their technological nightmares could have been done without any regulation whatsoever. Remember when they brought Mark Zuckerberg to Congress to kind of like justify the safeties of Facebook? Dude, we are way over that. We are up our asses on AI, and they have had no regulation whatsoever. Can you put the genie back in the bottle? And what would it take to do so? I leave you with that question, because in the end, I'm a nihilist. We don't care about nothing. We come back and we cut off your Johnson. If you know that quote, I love you. See you all next week. Bye bye. We cut off your Johnson.